Folks, we've got a lot to talk about today. Number one, markets continue to heat up as they build onto aggressive momentum. What's going on behind the scenes here, and what is the play with this? Number two, a major investor and co-founder of Palantir just sold Palantir stock amidst its impressive rally and breakout. Who is this, and why might they be doing this? Why? And finally, this is quite scary in terms of an escalation. Number three, an Israeli ship called the Galaxy Leader was just hijacked by a group known to be supported by Iran as the Middle Eastern conflict turns more and more global. I'll show you how this is already impacting global trade. And we'll get to work in a second, but first I'm very excited to announce that our biggest Black Friday sale ever on ZipTrader U starts now. If you type in coupon code BLACK90 before checkout, you will get 90% off the cost of the course. That's right, folks, you can now get ZipTrader U membership for just $50, slightly under $50, if you do it before Black Friday at midnight. Membership includes access to our 10 plus hours of step-by-step lessons, private chat, daily morning briefings, and more that you can learn about using our link down below. If you're having a hard time finding relevant catalysts and trade setups each and every morning, the morning briefings alone might be worth way more than that one-time fee of just under $50. So make sure to check it out before that coupon code expires Friday night. We've also got a new top idea coming for ZipTrader U members early this week, so if you do want to be one of the first to find out about that top idea, make sure to sign up before then. We're planning on releasing it Tuesday morning, so keep a lookout if you are a member or you're thinking about joining. Okay, now let's go ahead and get to work. So we are in an extreme breakout from the downtrend that has plagued the market since the end of July, bouncing more than 10% off lows hit just about a month ago. You look at the S&P 500 3-week performance, this has been the best 3-week performance since May 2020. When looking at CTA algos, positioning has gone up to highs we haven't seen since 2015 and now surpassed all-time highs. Now, what you got to remember is that CTAs, they ride trends. They don't try to predict a trend, they just simply ride trends. When they see a trend breaking out like we've seen, they start really adding to that trend, and then that causes the rest of the market to further want to jump in due to the FOMO effect. What the algos care about is just making money and riding whatever the current trend is. Now, the other dynamic going on right now is corporate buybacks. The power of the corporate buyback. You're seeing a lot more corporate buybacks now than you have in any other week since 2010. But not everyone is bullish. Right now, corporate clients are pouring money into markets through buybacks. Hedge funds are pouring money into markets through their CTAs and other relevant funds. But institutional and retail investors are selling in mass, aka a lot of what's driving today's market are simply buybacks and algos, and largely just in the top tech names. Now, why might retail and institutional investors be selling? Well, the last few times we've had aggressive uptrends, retail and institutional investors got completely dumped on, and so they, this time around, this rally around, aren't too fast to jump on the trend again. You know what they say, fool me once, fool me twice, blah, 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 blah. You ain't gonna get fooled again. But history shows that retail and institutional investors as well tend to like to jump back into markets once they've already gone up to newer and newer all-time highs. So once you've gotten to a point where you've broken out another key resistance level, you're gonna see a lot of retail say, oh, okay, well, we didn't want to buy it at lower prices, we're gonna buy it at higher prices. And institutional investors that manage mutual funds, they start getting phone calls saying, hey, you need to reinvest our funds. We can't be sitting out of the market that's rallying, and then all of a sudden they start rallying it up as well. But what are we hearing from analysts right now, the analysts of the anal? Well, a BMO analyst said this, quote from Business Insider, despite an impressive month-to-date gain thus far, there is still a fair amount of negativity and concern regarding stock market direction, Belsky, the BMO analyst, said. But that negativity among investors should serve as fuel for the market as stocks are poised to climb the wall of worry heading into the end of the year. We continue to view this as a bull market and that the path of least resistance is higher stock prices through year end, Belsky said. The extremely strong start to 2023 provided a buffer for recent weakness, and starts that strong have typically led to continued gains even with bumps along the way. Now it's time for you to let me know, do you think we're going to have a year-end rally, a rally into the end of the year, or do you think we're going to sell off? Let us know in the comment section down below, but a lot of the market right now is positioning for that year-end rally, at least in terms of share buybacks and in terms of hedge funds and their quant funds and the CTAs that they use. So the question is, are markets going to continue to rally? You can let us know down below. We love hearing from you. Next, Palantir stock. So Palantir stock just broke out past previous recovery highs and is building into the 20s. This is the highest close in 2 years. Palantir has finally been getting a ton of recognition after its last earnings, and markets are finally reallocating into it. And you actually just saw billionaire investor Philippe Lafont, his quote to management, they just took a massive position in the tier of Palant. And in fact, you look at Vanguard, BlackRock, Renaissance Technologies, they all also purchased shares in Q3. But now all of a sudden, we've got a major insider and a co-founder of Palantir going and selling a bunch of shares. Peter Thiel's Mithril LP Venture Capital Fund just announced it unloaded $48 million in Palantir shares acquired a decade ago. It's worth mentioning, by the way, that Mithril is also related to Lord of the Rings, just like the name Palantir is. I love how they name things. Maybe I gotta watch Lord of the Rings for the first time. But anyways, this $48 million worth of shares is a sizable chunk to sell this quickly, but not much compared to the overall Palantir shares that Mr. Peter Thiel controls directly or through his various funds. So the question is this going to be the start of a broader trend, or is this just a one-off event? Big argument people are saying right now is, well, Palantir shares are up some 220% year to date, which means Thiel thinks now is the time to lock in some profits because that's all it's going to be going up for a while. It's already pre-factored in too much. Just look at history. We just hit a 2-year high. How much longer can this go? But that's not exactly what I think is going on. I don't think that's what Peter Thiel is thinking and why he's selling right now. What I think is going on is I think Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and all of these guys over at Palantir are looking at all the data they get from different companies and government departments that they work with around the world, and they are coming to the conclusion that capital markets are going to go into a downward tailspin in the not-so-distant future. They don't know exactly what it is, but they're reading the tea leaves of all of their clientele that they have insane amounts of data from. The exec board over at Palantir has access to some of the most secretive, up-to-date content that anybody in the world has. So with what they're seeing, they're trying to think, maybe, just maybe, capital markets aren't going to be the place to be in for 2024. And so they're trying to take some money off the table, in this case, Peter Thiel specifically. But if you look at what Mr. Karp has done in terms of managing his company the last couple of years, he's been preparing en masse the company for this tighter capital market condition. So that's why I think Peter Thiel is selling. I think he's going to sell more because he wants that cash ready for the coming environment and whatever projects he needs to take on, or maybe he's going to rebuy Palantir stock at lower prices in a year or so. But it's worth mentioning for Palantir itself, dips tend to not sustain for very long. Dips have historically been excellent buying periods for Palantir. And as we head into more and more momentum, I would be surprised if this doesn't go much higher before it does get into its next dip cycle. Next story is from the Jerusalem Post. An Israeli ship named Galaxy Leader was hijacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels in the Red Sea on Sunday, according to Arab media. Okay, so you pull up the map. Yemen is down here. Part of Yemen is controlled by the Iran-backed militant group known as the Houthi rebels, and they've publicly declared war against Israel. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is these Houthi guys, while they are relatively far from Israel, they do have access to controlling this general area where Israel has strategic, but also a ton of supply chain ships. And this particular ship was a cargo ship that left a port in Turkey headed for India. Wasn't even connecting to Israel or anything like that. And oftentimes what Israelis and Israeli companies will do in order to avoid their ships having any problems with countries that don't like Israel, well, usually what they'll do is they'll use a bunch of different entities to cloud the connection between Israel and the ship. For example, this ship that got caught was a Bahamas flagged ship leased from a British company to a Japanese company. And the British company is only partly owned by an Israeli. So very, very clouded connection there to Israel. But yet they still went and hijacked it. And these Houthis, and by extension Iran, are escalating this conflict in a major, major way. They're sending a big message here, folks. What's the message? Well, it's pretty clear. Global trade is under major threat. If you work with Israel, you have any connection to Israel, you even think about Israel, well, your ship is going to be under threat. We might hijack it. We might stop it from getting to port. Your life could be in danger. Now, this is what a Houthi-linked news network said. Quote, Houthis will target all types of ships that carry the flag of the Zionist entity or are operated by or owned by Israeli companies, calling on all countries of the world to withdraw their citizens working on the crews of the enemy entity ships and to avoid shipping on them. Again, this is a signal that more and more trade, and one of the most lucrative and important strategic areas of the global economy, is going to be under threat of attack by the various militant groups that Iran is funding in this general Middle East region. This is what the Prime Minister's office in Israel said. Quote, this is another act of Iranian T-word, which expresses a leap forward in Iran's aggression against the citizens of the free world and creates international implications regarding the security of global shipping lanes. Now, this escalation from Iran-backed forces is coming at the same time as pressure in the U.S. to stop Israel's forces from pillaging Gaza grow. A couple days ago, Netanyahu explained that Israel has not been successful in its bid to minimize Gaza civilian casualties, which has been very, very apparent apparent if you're looking at the death count. You have some 1,200 killed in Israel and some 5,600 injured, but in Gaza, you have at least 11,500 killed, including 4,700 children and almost 30,000 people injured, with 70% of them being children and women. Now, it's known that Hamas likes to use different tactics to put civilians in harm's way in order to increase public pressure on the international scale or to get Israel not to target that area. But at the same time, Gaza is so tightly populated that it's very, very hard to imagine any sort of massive strike on that area without huge civilian casualties, right? And sadly, that has been the result of Israel's campaign into that region. Now, it's my view that no civilian deserves to die for wars that they didn't have anything to do with in the first place. And that's no matter what side the person is on. But these numbers are causing a lot of Americans right now to start questioning if Israel is going too far in its response to Hamas. Quote, a Reuters LPSOS survey conducted between November 13th to the 14th found that just under a third, 32% of Americans say that the U.S. should continue to back Israel in the conflict, a 9-point drop from the 41% who said the country should support its close ally in mid-October. And I think the big issue that Americans have with sending aid abroad is that in the beginning, we think, we're helping our ally so much. And then when you start seeing those casualties tick up, all of a sudden Americans start thinking, why are we sending so much money over there and weapons and prolonging the war and prolonging deaths? Why don't we take more of a role of a neutral moderator than somebody who goes and acts as a prolonger of a war, somebody that escalates things on a global stage? Maybe we should back up and just be a neutral moderator. Now, easier said than done for America given the last 100 years of foreign policy history, but still, that's the sentiment shift that you are seeing right now. And you've seen that with several different conflicts over the last few years. Of course, these are also proxy wars, right? West versus East. And as America gets more and more entrenched into them, it's causing more and more problems. Anyways, folks, let us know what you think down below. Give us your thoughts. Did we cover this fairly? Did we not cover this fairly? Let us know below. What are the best opportunities that you see heading into this week? And of course, a quick reminder, if you do want to get 90% off ZipTrader, you make sure to type in coupon code BLACK90 before it expires Friday night, this Black Friday. Looking forward to seeing you in our program, and we'll see you in the next video.